Welcome to Frieze Masters 2025. This year we decided to have a crochage of international pop. We've exhibited a number of these artists over the years, and people may have begun to forget that we have a large stock and have had forever a large interest in pop art. So we start with Adami, an early Adami, who we've shown a few times, then Kiyaraga, who was a Japanese artist who lived in Paris for a number of years. And to me, the most exciting paintings are the ones from Paris. And there's a sort of hilarious eroticism to it. Then there's Claude Gilly, who we showed once or twice, works from the 60s. He sadly wanted to follow Armand to New York, but he just got married in France at that time. You had to have a blood test, and they discovered that he had MS. There were no signs of it, but it meant that if he went to America, he could never get insurance. So he didn't, and he stayed in Nice. He never wanted to be a member of Nouvelle Realism as much as Pierre Restonnet wanted him to. A work that we've never shown before by Tajiri. Last year we sold a major piece of another machine to the Tate, which is on show in their pop art room. Tajiri had a strange life. He was born 18 years to the day in Watts, California, to Japanese American immigrants. So for his 18th birthday he was interned, and then he joined up and was very badly wounded in Italy and came back to the States, and then went to the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, and then he got a GI scholarship and went off to Paris, and he never returned. He actually taught for 1 year in Minneapolis, and I think in 1965. Because of this, he was violently anti-war, and so this is a sort of, with the heart as the thing, is a real protest to war. Wesselmann, one of the most famous of the Great American Nudes. It's recently been in the Paris Louis Vuitton Foundation. So the television in this piece is actually a photograph of a happening Oldenburg organized, and this is a still from it, and the film is actually in the archives of the Whitney. So you have Tom Wesselmann, Claire Wesselmann, Patty Oldenburg, Alan Capro, Klaus Oldenburg, Lucas Samaras, and I can't remember who the other people are. So it's a real period piece. Two works are on the outside that come from 1968 and 1969, which reflect 1968, the political upheavals. So this is Cafano. We did a show in 2018 of this series, which I think was which was 50 years after 1968. And I think it was actually the only show in any gallery around the world you can't celebrate but commemorate 1968. A diptych by Noviella, we did a show earlier this year, who was a Brazilian artist. He was originally in the army, then he became very anti the powers that be in Brazil, and so it's full of anti the army that was running the junta that there was. There are sort of marvelous references. Some of these things are like James Bond starting, and Tales of the Unexpected, the sorrow and everything, but he's a very, very, I think, exciting and proper pop artist. A mixture from around the world. So we have Joe Goode from California, from the Sky series, and they're always torn postcards or photographs. Now, whether this is, it might be two people, it might be the end of a romance and the photograph has been torn up, or it could be a cloud. I like to sort of think that it's the end of a romance. Richard Hamilton's Guggenheim, there were, I think, 6 much bigger ones, and then he did a print or a multiple Then with those he made unique ones, and this is apart from the big one, this is the only gold piece he did. It's quite extraordinary, I think, and all that glitter isn't gold, but this could be. From Italy, Tadini, I think the subject is Giorgio Marconi, who was his dealer. He's being bombarded by this wall, which has Eero from Iceland, who's lived in France for years, who's a really brilliant collagist. Our unsung hero from England, Colin Self, who really is the most extraordinary artist. And he just had a very, very successful retrospective at the Castle Museum in Norwich. Lesser known, Robert Watts from America. He showed with Dick Bellamy, the Green Gallery, and this is from 1965. He was in the famous Paul Bianchini's famous supermarket show, and at the moment in the Whitney, in their permanent collection, there's a sort of stack of eggs in cartons. He's a sort of cult figure, and one seldom sees it, but this is a sort of marvelous one, BLT. Pauline Botti, we sort of rediscovered. This is one that I originally had as a state in 1992, I think. Then we have from Belgium, Marcel Breutus, rather extraordinary portrait in a bottle. From Holland, one of the members of the Zero group, Jan Hendrikse. This one has been in many shows, and it's a superb bit of pop. Billy Apple, who wanted to have this show Robert Fraser of Neon Rainbows, but it was even too much for Robert, and so these weren't shown till he went to America. You see all these colors, when you look at the wall, they all become white, and this is one of the sort of things that fascinated him. This is a lovely piece by Jan Howarth that originally came from Robert Fraser, and she made the Severini, and she couldn't find sequins, the colors she wanted. So all these sequins are hand painted by her. This is English, American, New Zealander, Anglo-American, and then we have Filko from Slovakia, who I think is the most fantastic. I think there are two really important artists from Slovakia, conceptual, whatever, and the other one is Julius Kohler, who we have an exhibition with at the gallery. But these are marvelous color, sort of, and these are altarpieces, but there's a sort of sacrilegion in there too. Then our last bit of the stand is, again, truly international. We have Imre Bak from Hungary. He went to England in the early to mid-60s, and there was a show of pop art at the Tate. And so when he went back to Hungary, to Budapest, this painting, he painted this painting, which changed in style, very influenced by what he had seen at the Tate. Sue Dunkley, who we did a show of last year, and she used black and white illustrations from magazines. So this one is Gilbert and George in our own thing, and this is a photograph taken from a magazine of when they did Underneath the Arches, which I first saw the opening of Sonnenben's gallery and Castelli's and John Webber's in New York in 420 West Broadway in 1971. She's a very exciting, virtually, she got divorced in the early 70s and stopped painting in the pop art milieu, and then a few years later sort of went into traditional landscape and things. Very beautiful, but not the same. And, we've sold works to the Wolverhampton Art Gallery, to the Tate, Pallant House. Self-portrait drawing has recently gone to the National Portrait Gallery. And I think we've only got about 3 or 4 left. Ferdy, she only uses fabric, and they're full of very sexual connotation. Sadly, she died very young, and so there's not much work by her around, but this is just to give people an idea of it. You can read whatever you want into it, but if it's sexual, you're right. Finally, we have Kanaga, who we showed earlier this year, of his work from 1957 to 61. But he happened to be in America. I think he was in Berkeley when Kennedy was shot, and it had a tremendous impact on it. So this is dated 1963, so it had to be late November, early December. So you have sort of three parts of his life. Well, his death there, one of the greatest mistakes of his life, the Bay of Pigs, and then the success of his life, the space program. But it's an extraordinary painting to me. I hope you all come and see the show and enjoy it. Thank you.